Was that a bit better?
It was a bit better. I still went slow, but it was a bit better. Hey everybody, this is Dick here. This is my third and final video of my ride on my friend Radar's Ducati Monster 1200. I had said in the previous two videos that I was uninterested or unwilling to interact with the depth of the sophisticated or overcomplicated rider adjustments and modes included on the Ducati Monster 1200. However, I was convinced to try the touring mode, which interestingly enough transformed the bike and may even have softened my previous impressions of Ducati Monsters. If it weren't for the lingering issues of narrow service intervals and overinflated associated running and maintenance costs, this ride may have converted me back to a Ducati guy. But alas, my pockets aren't deep enough, nor is my stomach strong enough to eat those up. Right back in the shit. Just realizing this is 11 years newer, 11 years younger than my Ducati Monster, and sometimes manufacturers stagnate and they just kind of rest on their laurels, keep making the same old thing, and there's incremental improvements, but nothing groundbreaking or mind-boggling. But I was saying to Radar, if my Ducati rode like this and had the service intervals that this has, I'd probably still own it. This is not as shit as I thought it would be, and definitely not as shit as they used to be. And it shows that there's a development an evolution, not so much a development, but an evolution of what the Monster has become. And actually, it's become a bit less monster, less of a monster. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because the bike is better for it. The riding experience is better for it. And I'm not just saying that because Radar really loves it and he's let me ride it. I came in with a bit of trepidation in that I thought it was just going to be another Monster, and my memory of Monsters are that they're pretty shit. But this is not shit. And I'm not just saying that for the sake of saying that. I've said it before, and I'm droning on about it, maybe. But it is a very unique motorcycle. The fact that you can't see that front wheel, and you kind of go on faith that it's there. I was surprised to see that it was a 17-inch front wheel, because it felt a bit more, it felt like a 16-inch or a 15-inch. It felt really small compared. I was surprised that it was so big because of how squirrely the front end can get. And I say squirrely, it's odd. It's an odd sensation that you kind of feel like you're riding on the edge, but at the same time you feel pretty confident that this thing is planted or stuck to the ground underneath you. Now, saying that, I would not be surprised if on any one of these turns this thing just catapulted me off one way or the other. I don't so much feel like this would be a slider downsider bike, rather than a bike that would catch me out on a turn and just flick me off high side.
Try it in touring mode.
What's that?
Try it in touring mode on the back lane.
Touring mode. I suggest I try it in touring mode on the back lanes to see. Oh, immediately. There's an immediate difference in the throttle response. So much tamer. So much tamer. It's funny, it's revving out the engine quicker. Very interesting. It's revving out the engine quicker, but it's not translating to power to the wheel, which is a bit unnerving for me, who usually doesn't like to hear the engine straining. But I feel a lot more in control on the bike now. I mean, that's definitely one of the features that my old Monster didn't have. It was just straight out of the box. There was no input from any computers or anything. It makes first gear usable. I think I spent a lot of my time on this bike in the touring. They call it touring. It's probably tantamount to road mode. I didn't see what the settings were. It looks like wheelie control is up to a 3. Traction control is bumped up to a 4. What else is it? ABS is bumped up to a 3. This is out a engine medium power. That's out of a sliding scale of 9. I think 9 being the most tame. So I mean, even in touring, a number 3 wheelie control, 1 or 0 being that the front wheel lifts, 1 being what the current sport mode is set in. This is more my style of riding too. These more tame speeds, interesting back roads. That was kind of him. I'm getting used to that quick shifter too. Look at that freaking landscape. What's funny is when I had my Monster, these back roads were a bit unwieldy for me on the Monster, and I think in sport mode it probably would be a bit unwieldy, but the touring mode has made this a revelation. So it's an argument for modes, which mostly I talk myself out of because of the price point that bikes with rider modes come in at. This rider mode is a bit more sophisticated than some riding modes that I've One, with the adjustability within each rider mode, but two, just the fact that you could make this balls to the wall naked sports bike a little country lane cruiser it just makes the bike more versatile. Touring mode is more my speed and making this bike come alive for me. It's less of a scary experience. Still exhilarating. You still feel like you're using a lot of the bike. The hydraulic clutch though, it's getting heavy. Very usable screen, very small, tucked under that Ducati Monster fairing. Automatically turns from day mode to night mode. A lot of information, but not overwhelming. So zipping through here in touring mode, it is a bit more mellow, and some of those turns that I would have screamed into a bit too hot were a bit more manageable rolling off the throttle. And again, we're down in biker country because it's a freaking Wednesday. And I've seen more people out on bikes than on your average Sunday up near London. Yeah, I'm having a good day on this bike. You know what? It's funny how Radar often says, you know, I think I might trade it in for a R9T Sport. And I can't see why he would. This thing is not nearly as abusive as the R9Ts I've been riding at these speeds for this duration. And what's funny is I've always kind of looked at the R9Ts as the quintessential roadster, and maybe after riding them I was like, you know, maybe I don't want a roadster, but this thing, it's an argument for it. They really know how to take care of the rider and the wind on this thing. There's no wind. It's phenomenal. This is just a hoot, man. Very vibey at 8,000 RPM. Gorgeous view of the valley up here. An Audi TT riding up my ass, trying to see what I can do. And now I don't have an Audi TT riding up my ass, seeing what I can do. This touring mode is a revelation for this bike. It's made it so much more rideable for me. I know it affects the throttle response, and it definitely has. It's not as on-off as the Sorry, I got interrupted. It's not as on-off as a sports mode, but it's almost allowing me to highlight the abilities of the bike while allowing me I say it's allowing me to exploit the positives of this bike, but it isn't punishing me for my inability to maximize it unbridled. My butt's asleep now. But man, I can see why he likes his bike. Would I own one? I don't know. I'm probably talking myself into it with every mile that we're covering, especially every mile through these roads that we're covering. The dual disc brakes is allowing me to trail brake, which is not something I normally do, but that's only if I want to use the brakes at all, because I just love rolling this throttle. The touring mode is allowing me to run each gear a little higher in the revs, and that's definitely affecting the amount of vibration I'm getting. I'm getting a lot more vibration in touring mode than I was in sport mode. And it's definitely all in the seat. My glutes are buzzing and are asleep. And there's buzzing in the foot pegs, right on my balls where the tank is, and in both hands. Doesn't make it any less fun though. So it is shaking the pee out of me. Whoa, gravel. Caught out on that one. I would need a lot more hours in the saddle to be able to take the turns the way I want to. Oh my God. That's why a driver's test should include these country lanes, because people get out here and they don't know how to ride them. It's really funny spending as much time as I do on different motorcycles, not just the ones I own, because it takes a moment for you to translate what's happening on the bike. It takes a moment for you to kind of realize how the acceleration works. Why was that woman freaking out? How the throttle works, how you're braking and deceleration, the balance of the bike, and you know, you go for a little bit of a ride and someone says, well, how do you like it? Or how does it work? Or how does it feel? And it takes a little bit of time to figure out how to communicate that. And I generally generally feel like a motorcycle, you're gonna know whether you like a motorcycle or not, or whether you want to spend any time on a motorcycle or not in the first mile. And then it's just kind of a building a relationship with it, getting to know it. But within that first mile, you want to, it's kind of like the first date. And some of these bikes lately that I've been riding, they've been a bit inexplicable. They've been, you can't really, maybe they're too vanilla, or maybe they're trying to be something they're not. But the Ducati Monster has always been, and I'm happy to say remains, a singular motorcycle. It's grown up. The Monster has matured. And I'm happy to say the Monster's matured in the same measure that I've matured. All right, backing up in the dirt. Shows it's height. It's definitely taller than my old Monster, and the steering lock is dismal. Oh, you know why? Huh. Because this is an actual fuel tank up here and not the airbox, and so you don't have those cutouts that the old airbox faux tank had, which gave you tighter steering lock. Look at this landscape. Oh my God. This is why novels were written about the English landscape. Timeless, world-class novels set in the English landscape. And a hedgerow. Stay on target. Red 5 standing by. Haha, Red 5! My Ducati. Yeah, I'd hate to admit it because I've been slagging him off for owning a Ducati for so long. But I could seriously, I could see why he traded the XSR for it. Because it's comparable power for the to the XSR, but it's so much nicer to look at. And it just cooks, man, it cooks. And in this touring mode, when it cooks, it's not upsetting. It's not unwieldy. Whoa, Jesus Christ. Just rode into a snake pit fucking hell. That hole in the fucking road was the exact same width and length as this tire. Luckily it was nice and light on the front wheel that it didn't fucking turn and throw me. Oh, tree tunnel. The temperature just dropped like 15 degrees. Yeah, man. The handlebar width is a perfect width for my reach. Actually, the geometry is pretty perfect now that I'm thinking about it. The excitement is not wearing off, but a little logic is seeping in, and I'm able to analyze this bike a bit more. And the geometry is pretty perfect. I've been on this bike most of the day now, and I have no interest in getting off it. So I did buy my original Monster after a ride down the street and back. And I imagined that it would ride like this. And it didn't. Which is one of the reasons I didn't own it for so long. And I didn't ride it that much. I didn't ride it as much as I thought I would for the length of time I owned it. And I didn't own it for the the length of time that I thought I would keep it. Look both ways, you f***ing old man. I wonder how much a dick-sized dent would be to get it hammered out of a Bentley SUV. So I owe Radar an apology for making fun of him and his Ducati obsession. And it seems that Ducati has addressed quickshifter my issues with the Monster. Now, I owe him one. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to pay him one. I'm not in gear. Huh. That was interesting. I used the blipper to go from 4th to 3rd. It said 3rd, but then I was in a false neutral. Every time I get off the bike, he asks me how bad I'm slagging it off because of all the shit I've been giving him about Ducatis and Ducati ownership. But and I'm like, oh no, it's not I like it. Have you talked about the vibes? Yeah, I've talked about the vibes. Have you talked about this? Yeah, I've talked about that. But I think he's going to be disappointed at how much I like this bike. Or maybe he'll be pleasantly surprised. He did tell me not to be in a bad mood today when I came down to try it. And I think even if I was in a bad mood, riding this bike would put me in a good mood. What's that?
Is that the old bill behind you? Police were behind you, weren't they?
Was that a cop?
I think so.
Oops. Phaser! Phaser! If you like that video and you want to see more like them, hit like, share, and subscribe.